Okay, let's get right into it. We're taking a deep dive into a lifetime deal for a tool called Bitform. And really, the big question is, can this thing finally help us escape those crazy expensive software subscriptions?
You know the feeling, right? That slow, creeping dread of all the monthly software fees. $15 here, $30 there. Before you know it, it's a huge chunk of your budget. And it's always for the tools you absolutely can't run your business without.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the problem, the real cost of forms. Then we'll introduce this lifetime deal as a potential fix, put its features to the test, crunch the numbers, and finally, figure out if this deal is actually the right call for you.
All right, first things first, let's really establish the core problem here. Just how expensive something as simple as an online form can get.
I mean, just think about it. You need to collect info, you need to qualify potential customers, you need to take payments. Smart online forms are the engine that makes all of that happen. They're not some luxury item anymore. They are absolutely fundamental.
And you know, when you think of those really slick, elegant forms, one name probably pops into your head: Typeform. It's kind of been the benchmark for years, so it's the perfect standard to compare against.
Now, if you want the features you actually need to run a business, the pro stuff, you're usually looking at a starting price of around $29 a month. At first glance, you might think, okay, that's not so bad.
But that's where they get you. That monthly fee adds up, and it adds up fast. Suddenly, that not-so-bad price tag turns into over $348 every single year. For a small business or a freelancer, that is a serious, repeating expense.
And that brings us to the whole point of this. Let's look at a potential solution, a lifetime deal that could completely flip this whole financial problem on its head.
So enter Bitform. The source material we're looking at paints it as a real up-and-comer. It's designed from the ground up to be this complete, data-focused tool, just without that painful monthly bill. And here it is. This is the number that changes the entire game. A single one-time payment of $79. That's it. You get lifetime access to all their pro features. When you put that next to $348 a year, it's pretty staggering. But hey, a cheap price tag doesn't mean a thing if the tool can't deliver, right? So let's see what Bitform can actually do. Let's put its features under a microscope and see how they hold up. Let's pop the hood and see what we're working with. And we're not talking about your basic name and email forms. We're talking advanced conditional logic, where the form changes based on someone's answers, making it feel like a real conversation. You get calculated fields, which are perfect for creating instant price quotes. And it hooks right into Stripe, PayPal, HubSpot, all the big ones. These are the kinds of powerful automation tools people usually pay a ton for. Okay, a feature list sounds impressive, but does it all work when the rubber meets the road? Let's get out of theory land and see how Bitform handles a really common and kinda complex business task.
So, here was the test. Build a smart quote calculator. First step, the user picks a project scope, which sets a base price. Then, the form uses that conditional logic to only show the add-ons that actually make sense for that project. And finally, a calculated field adds it all up instantly, giving a final quote right there on the screen.
And the result? Well, it absolutely nailed it. The test was a huge success. The form was super responsive, the complex logic worked flawlessly without any lag, and the math was perfect. This thing is definitely ready for serious business-critical tasks. Okay, so we know it works. Now let's talk about the money, because this is where it gets really, really interesting. Let's break down the actual lifetime value here. Just look at this table. It lays it all out in black and white. $79 one time versus $348 a year. Zero recurring costs versus paying that $348 again and again every single year. You save over $269 in the first year alone. And you know, if that table didn't quite hit home, this bar chart definitely will. The visual gap between that tall bar for the recurring subscription and the tiny little bar for the one-time cost, it's just massive. Let me put it this way. Your $79 investment pays for itself in less than 3 months. Everything after that is just pure savings, pure profit, year after year. That is an insanely fast ROI. So, we've seen it's powerful, we've seen it's an incredible deal. But the big question remains, is this lifetime deal the right choice for you and your business? Well, the review we looked at really spells it out. If you're a freelancer who needs to build things like quote calculators, or a marketer at a small agency trying to stretch a budget, or a solopreneur who just needs pro-level tools without the huge overhead, this thing is basically custom made for you. But look, let's be real, no tool is perfect. The pros are crystal clear, the value is just unbeatable, the features are powerful, and the interface is clean and quick. On the flip side, you're not going to find as many pre-made templates, it'll take a minute to learn the really advanced stuff, and you don't have quite as many design options as some of those ultra-premium tools. So, what's the bottom line? The final verdict from the review is pretty clear. It's a no-brainer investment. You're getting like 90% of the core power that you'd get from the big, expensive guys, but for a tiny, one-time fraction of the price. And that really brings us back to the very beginning, doesn't it? It leaves us with this one last thought. If you could eliminate that recurring cost, what could you do with an extra $348 in your pocket? What could you build or create or invest in for your business with that money year after year?